So meeting Kevin and Jane, here's the word that comes up for me when I think about them: love. Love. I actually retired from Franklin University in June. So I was ready to, have a vacation, spend time with Karen, and then look for another job in training and development or coaching. My vision for Karen and I, our life, was to live downtown, to work downtown again, and to be able to walk to work. So I got offered a job that met that criteria, and it was like everything was coming true that I had dreamed about. It was like October 26th, I was diagnosed. I had accepted the job prior to that, and then I actually had to have a conversation with that company to decline that job because my full-time job got to be battling the C word. It's like I had to change my attitude right away about my full-time job gets to be working through this challenge.
The weekend before his first chemo, you saw his inspiration word on his shirt today. We decided to have a visiting weekend. And so on Saturday for a few hours and on Sunday for a few hours, we invited anybody who wanted to come over and see Trace. As soon as people started walking in the door, he started handing them name tags and asked them to put their word for the day on that name tag and then share a story about Tracy and how he impacted them. I would say we had, on Sunday, 120 people through here. 120 people in this little house sharing stories about Tracy. Who gets that? Nobody gets that.
We read the stories about people that had to travel back and forth to the James. And they can be 2 hours away, or they could be an hour and a half away. We are 20 minutes away from where I need to go, so we're blessed. But there are other people that have those challenges of traveling after chemo. And I'm originally from Chillicothe, so I'm putting myself, if I was in Chillicothe and I'd have to come up to do the chemo and then we'd have to go home and all of the things that go into that, the transportation, the lodging, the cost. And when we saw Hope Hollow and the practical application of what your funds can do for somebody that's going through cancer, that was the deal breaker. That was a deal breaker because it's applicable right away. It's not the theoretical research or any of those things. We wanted to support people right away.
That was amazing. Tracy was a phenomenal motivational speaker. He was a real gift to Jane and I and to Hope Hollow. Tracy was just wonderful. He got Hope Hollow. He was going through the journey, and he was struggling. And I remember one night he was sharing with us here that he knew how painful it was for him and what a struggle it was for him to go from where he was receiving care and treatment to his home in Central Ohio. And it was like he got the fact that so many people come from so far and how hard that would be.
It's like you have an idea of what your life is going to be, and then all of a sudden something takes that from you. I was 29 years old. It was a week before my 30th birthday when I found a lump on my breast, and I totally found it as a fluke. I thought that I was laying on my cell phone and felt pressure on the side and reached over. My phone wasn't there, but I did find a lump. So went in, had it checked, and everyone was very positive and was very much saying, oh, you're young, you'll be fine. If it's anything, it's an early stage, you're good, you're fine, you'll beat this, it'll be a year out of your life at most, and you'll be done. Fast forward to 3 weeks later, when I was down at Spielman for my second opinion, and they told me that not only was it cancer confirmed, but it was stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. I went from having an idea that I was young, I could beat this, and I might not even have to do chemo, to being terminal. And at my stage, since it's not curative, it's all palliative chemo to get the cancer stabilized and to stop growing. Within about 3 months of being on the hormone therapy, my cancer did stabilize, and I have continued to be stable. However, stable doesn't mean that the appointments stop. I have neuro-oncology appointments, breast oncology appointments, OBGYN appointments. It's a constant series of going through these appointments and making sure that the cancer stays stabilized. Because at some point, even though I'm stable now, it will fail. I never expected to be 30 years old and retired from a career that I just started and absolutely loved. I always imagined that I'd be able to have children one day and get married, and that's not my reality anymore. Right away, I had to move back in with my parents because the financial strains were becoming very high at that point. So much so that eventually it led me into going into bankruptcy. But in the midst of that, having to move back home became an hour away. Hope Hollow came into my life at a time when I really just needed it. I know my first time that I was able to get a room, and I was like, oh, is this actually happening? And then I got it to my room, and I just teared up and almost started crying because I'm like, I don't have to deal with this. Like, I was so nauseous, and I didn't have to deal with driving all the way home, knowing that I'd only have a couple hours of sleep before I had to come back and do more testing and scanning and more appointments. The treatment that I was on wasn't considered active treatment because metastatic disease in breast cancer is not curable. So the goal is to stabilize the disease. So because it's not considered active treatment, a lot of resources go away. Hope Hollow was not one of those. This isn't just, hey, we're gonna put you up and you're on your way. This is a family that's created that really cares about people through everything. I know I can call Jane at any time and she'll be there, and she calls and checks in on me just like a mom would and say, hey, how are you doing? And there's some times where I'm just like, I do not feel good. And she respects that, and she can empathize with that more than just sympathize. Sometimes it's nice to not just have sympathy, but someone who gets it and can empathize.
I'm a 2-time cancer survivor. I often use the terminology that cancer is a journey. It's a physical journey, it's a spiritual journey, it's an emotional journey. The emotional journey, I think, is equally as important as the physical journey. One of the most important things about the emotional journey of cancer is to know that you're not alone. Emotionally, I find myself feeling, probably more than anything in my life right now, gratitude. I'm grateful that I've had my own experience. It sounds strange to say you're grateful for having experienced cancer, but cancer taught me so many things in my life. Boy, it taught me to treasure each day. It taught me to appreciate and live in the present moment. It taught me a lot about being in the present moment with others. All of that has definitely contributed to my being able to be present to the persons we serve at Hope Hollow in a far more real way, I think a deeper way, and probably a much more empathetic and compassionate way.
You know, imagine you're in a strange city and you have no money for lodging and you have no money for meals and you don't have enough gas in your car to get home. Oh, and you have cancer too. Hope Hollow provides for those basic human needs.
Well, all you have to do is to meet Kevin and Jane. I mean, 2 saints on earth that have really devoted their life to this cause and this incredible need. And I think if you're someone like myself, and I've given to Hope Hollow, where you're looking to do something and you want to see a direct impact on patients and their needs, you've met the right two people.
If I were to describe Kevin and Jane, first word that comes to my mind is selfless. They're compassionate, they're generous beyond measure, and they're making a huge impact on the lives of people needing care. Chronic lymphocytic leukemia is incurable. And when I was diagnosed, there was one treatment available. It was a chemotherapy combination called FCR. I knew after some genetic testing that FCR would not work for me. So I was diagnosed with a incurable, fairly untreatable cancer. The life expectancy is 7 years. And at the time, my daughter was 5 years old. So it's sometimes hard to find the strength to put one foot in front of the other when you know that there's a good chance you're going to miss weddings and graduations and you know, being a grandmother. Those were things that I mourned. And I recall going to my closet and hiding from my kids because I didn't want them to see me cry. And just, you know, mourning those things and trying to realign my life goals. After my diagnosis, I found through lots and lots and lots of research a new drug that had come about. This drug was called ibrutinib. And Dr. Bird at Ohio State University is credited for bringing this to us. And this drug, as I was reading about it, I learned was taking people out of hospice and back to their regular lives. So I had the ingredient that every cancer patient needs. I had hope, and that got me out of the closet, so to speak. You want to do anything you can when you're a mom. You want to stick around. You need to be there. That is a huge part of any mom's day, is being there for her children. But I knew that if I wanted to be there long term, my best interest would be to go to Ohio State. I live in Maryland. It's a 7-hour drive. And I would be leaving work, so there's a financial component for sure. My treatment was 16 months. It wasn't just, a couple of months. It was going to be back and forth over the course of 16 months. I'm a little bit more than halfway through now. I was at Ohio State, and the social worker there connected me with Kevin. It made a big part of the decision much easier. I knew that I would be able to financially follow the path that would save my life. And so I'm so grateful to all of his donors, to Kevin, to Jane, for what they've allowed to happen for me. Just a couple of weeks ago, I received the news that my bone marrow is cancer-free. So I made the right decision.